Hi, I'm Jen, and I am a neurodivergent YouTuber and TikToker, and I was inspired by a TikToker named Ashley to make this video.
Can someone who actually has autism or ADHD please tell me how to get over executive dysfunction? Because I'm tired of reading these articles that are written by people who obviously do not have either of those. And they're like psychologists. I'm sorry. Y'all do great work, but like I need someone who's been in the dirt. I need someone who's been in the trenches.
You have probably seen videos about executive dysfunction before and why it can be so challenging for neurodivergent people. But if you are not familiar with the term, today I'm going to explain what executive functions are and how they work in the brain. And I will also share 10 tips to help manage executive dysfunction a bit better. So save this video somewhere handy so you can find it when you're struggling with something that's related to this topic, and hopefully it will help. I am sharing this because I know how tough it can be, and trust me, I have been in the trenches. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also active on TikTok, and I would really appreciate it if you could check it out and give me a follow. And please help me to help the algorithm recognize my target audience by liking and subscribing this video. And if you don't want to miss any of my content, please click on the notification bell. Thank you. All right, let's dive in. What are executive functions? Executive functions are processes in the brain that help us do things like think before acting, handle unexpected situations, stay focused, switch between tasks easily, pay attention selectively, be flexible and adaptable, and get things done with purpose, and basically with starting tasks. They allow you to get stuff done in a structured way. These functions are possible because of the frontal lobe of the brain. And for most people, starting or stopping a task and figuring out how to do things isn't a big deal. Sounds like the dream, right? Well, for me and a lot of us, it is not that easy. A lot of neurodivergent people struggle with this, and when these processes become consistently challenging, it is called executive dysfunction. This means you might have trouble with one or more of those areas I just mentioned. For example, starting or stopping a task can be difficult, like what is often called autistic inertia. And for me, this is super relatable because I can see what needs to be done, but organizing it in a way that actually works, that is a challenge. I often end up in freeze mode because everything feels so overwhelming. And one example is when I try to make a schedule for work because I struggle to rank tasks in order of importance and estimate how long they will take because everything seems equally important to me. And this feeling of equal importance has to do with my difficulty of filtering information. However, lucky you that autism and every aspect of it is a special interest of mine. So I did some research, actually a lot of research, and found some tools that help me manage it. And I will share those tools and tips with you today. That being said, these tools are not going to magically make all your struggles disappear, but hopefully they will help you make some progress. By the way, here's a fun fact. In order to be good at executive functioning, you have to use a top-down approach of processing information. While most autistic people usually process information from the bottom up. In other words, top-down processors use previous information they have gathered as a base for new experiences, and they see the big picture first and then focus on the details and fine-tuning. For some autistic people, though, every experience feels brand new, and we have to rethink each detail since it changes based on the situation. So it takes us longer to see the big picture. With executive dysfunction, this means that we see everything we need to do as separate pieces. We have to gather all those pieces together before we can form a complete picture and actually get started. And that whole process can feel so overwhelming that sometimes we just cannot even begin. And it leads to what is called analysis paralysis, basically getting stuck in the thinking process without being able to take action. And when executive functions don't work well, it's really hard to manage day-to-day life. And maybe you are watching this video because you struggle with this too. It's exhausting when you cannot organize things well in your head. And you might recognize that you think a lot and have a lot of ideas, but it often does not translate into action. So, what do you do about it? I think it's time for some helpful tools. Here are 10 tips to manage executive dysfunction. Number 1, body doubling. Have you ever felt like it was easier to get something done when someone was with you? That person didn't help you, but just their presence was enough? That is actually called body doubling. It works because having someone else around gives you a sense of structure and accountability, and you often feel more motivated to keep going. For example, body doubling helps me a lot in the mornings because my housemate gets up at the same time as me and we go through the same routine. And this makes it easier for me to get up and follow my morning routine too. And if I were alone, just laying out clothes, brushing my teeth, showering, and making breakfast, that would be way too overwhelming to do on my own. I mean, I could do it, but it would be harder for sure. So try to have someone around when you are preparing dinner, cleaning the house, or working on important projects on your device, for example. And make sure that this person does not interrupt you, but is only present in the room, or actually just does the same thing as you. And make sure that it is someone that you actually trust, or you might feel watched and anxious, and that doesn't work as well, does it? Number 2, distract yourself. Sometimes it is difficult to focus on a task that you find really boring or overwhelming, and distraction can really help on those moments. Music, for example, helps me a ton. My AirPods and music help me tune out other distractions, but the music or the podcast itself is just the right kind of distraction that I need for my brain. And if I am cleaning, I put on upbeat music that gets me in the mood. And sometimes I listen to a podcast that interests me while doing something else, like folding the laundry, for example. And it makes the task feel less boring. You can actually create special playlists that are suitable for different occasions, such as a cleaning playlist or a morning routine playlist. And this way you can slowly get into the mood of what you want to do. Because calm transitions are key, and also setting the mood for the task that you're going to do is really important as well. There are also clean with me videos on YouTube where people clean or fold their laundry, and you can follow along with them. And that kind of ties into body doubling, where you do the same tasks together. And it can help to not be completely focused on the task at hand, and at the same time focus on something that actually interests you. Because when we are busy with our interests, time often flies by. I actually have that right now with making this video. Number 3, change your environment. Do you sometimes feel like you're stuck in your house? Then it is actually time to change your environment. For example, I wrote this video script while being on a 3-hour train ride. And the changing of the scenery really helps me. A new environment like a quiet cafe, for example, can boost your productivity. And especially if the cafe looks visually beautiful, like soft lighting or seeing pleasant colors or objects. I am personally more productive if the space I am in feels good to my senses. So sometimes the trick is to actually get yourself out of the house and into a new place. And I know that may not be easy because you actually have to get dressed, get yourself out of the house, everything that comes with it, of course, but it is really worth it. If it is your first time in a new environment, it can help to look up what the place looks like online in advance so that you're not faced with any surprises. And if you can make a reservation, indicate, for example, that you want to sit in a quiet place. And I do that sometimes, for example, when I go to dine at a restaurant. And it works great because I always get the quiet spot. Number 4. Use tools to make a schedule and prioritize. Do you often know what you need to do, but you cannot get it done because you find it difficult to set priorities or estimate how long something will take? There are actual tools available that can help creating your personal schedule. I find it hard to prioritize tasks, and one tool that actually helps me with getting this done is ChatGPT. I will actually ask GPT to create a to-do list and rank tasks by importance, and if I am unsure how long something will take, I can ask it to estimate that time for me. You will then receive a schedule in which the tasks are listed in order with the amount of time they will take. Oh, and by the way, do not forget to schedule rest and downtime because that's very important. Using your phone's reminders and calendar apps can help too. And I often set timers on my Apple Watch. Actually, one went off pretty recently and I got distracted by it, so it's not always great, but it actually works to get you out of that thing you're doing and be reminded of that task that you actually need to be doing. Yeah. And I actually try to not click away the reminder until I've gotten up and actually done it. And in this case, I was remembered like a few hours in advance. So I'm good. I can continue with making this video. Right? Yeah. Right. A clear schedule gives me a sense of direction and motivates me to do more of what I want to do. And if I don't have to think it all through myself, that is a huge bonus because I'm actually having a hard time with that. Number 5, break tasks into smaller steps. Big tasks are overwhelming. Most people might just write do laundry on their to-do list, but for me, that creates more questions and confusion. So what actually helps for this is to break tasks down into smaller steps like this. To do laundry. Step 1, gather laundry supplies from the laundry basket, from the floor, and other areas. Step 2, sort clothes by temperature, type of clothing, and color. Step 3, use the right settings for the washing machine. Step 4, choose the right amount of laundry detergent and possibly fabric softener. It takes time to break tasks down, but once you have them, it is easier to get started. It can help to cross off each task from your list to ensure you do not forget a step. I literally make lists and procedures for everything. So people think that things run smoothly with me, but I do have a plan every time. That's why. For example, I have a procedure on how I can determine when something needs to be done in my household. Once a week, I walk through each room and look around to determine what needs to be done and write it down. After that, I break it down into smaller steps and put it in my schedule. 6, create transition time. Switching from one task to another without a break can be really hard for me. If I cannot gradually switch from one task to another, what happens is something that I call a brain that looks and feels like scrambled eggs. Being interrupted literally feels painful to me and chaotic. I do have a monotropic brain, which means that I get sucked into one task and struggle to switch to the next one. There is actually a theory called monotropism that explains why this happens with autistic people. And if you want to know more about monotropism, I actually recommend Mac's video on the subject. I'll put her video in my description box below if you want to dig into this more. Because when I started learning more about this theory, everything I have been struggling with the past years totally made sense. Number 7, create momentum. You know that saying that an object in motion stays in motion? Well, it's important to organize your tasks in a way that keeps you moving. And if you suddenly have to shift your focus to something completely different, it can break your momentum. So try to group similar tasks together. So, for example, if you're heading to the bathroom and notice the trash is full, just take it out while you're up. Or if you're putting away clothes, you could quickly check the bedroom to see if there's any dirty laundry that needs to go in the hamper. It's about connecting your tasks so there is a flow. And when everything flows together, I find it much easier to get things done instead of feeling like they are scattered all over the place. My mind really doesn't like bouncing from one random thing to another. And one tip I read is that once you're up, tackle other tasks that require standing because once you sit down, it is harder to get back up again. Also, put things where they make the most sense for you. I keep my makeup and supplements on the windowsill in my room because it's more convenient for me to grab them there rather than in the bathroom or on the kitchen table, for example. It is not about where things are supposed to go or what you've been taught when you were younger, but where they make the most sense for you and how you function. And something else that helps is talking out loud to yourself as you go through the process. Just say things like, okay, I'm going to get up now. I'm going to walk to that room. I'm going to grab that. Okay, I got that right now, and so forth and so on. It can help you focus and get out of your head, and it might feel weird at first, but if it works, it works. Number 8, limit demands as much as possible. I've said it before and I've heard it from clients too. It's exhausting to be human. I mean, I really want to have a conversation with the person that invented the human body and everything that comes with being human because it's so hard to get everything done and basically function. Yeah. I mean, all the tasks that come with just keeping yourself alive can get overwhelming really quickly. There is so much you have to do, and before you know it, relaxation gets pushed aside, or that thing that you actually wanted to do. Personally, I don't handle demands very well, and I struggle when things have to get done. And when you have a bunch of demands piling up, it is hard to make time for anything else. You get tired faster and your brain starts to feel overloaded. And I get that cutting back on demands isn't always easy because sometimes you really do have a lot to do, but generally it is important to reduce demands as much as possible, at least in my experience, and especially if you are a autistic person with a PDA profile, which basically means the persistent drive for autonomy. Demands can drain your motivation and put too much pressure on you, which means you will have less energy for things you actually enjoy. See if you can delegate tasks or figure out which ones are really necessary. And if doing the dishes feels like a tough task, for example, maybe look into getting a mini dishwasher. And it's also worth considering if some tasks are causing you sensory overload, which makes them harder to do. In that case, tools like gloves could help, for example. You could also try meal prepping if making food every evening is overwhelming for you. And in that way, you don't have the pressure of cooking every day. Make emergency meals for yourself with your favorite dishes, so if you really cannot cook, you still have something to eat. And when you have a little free time, try to spend it on your special interest or just rest and recharge in bed. Because we get tired more easily from all the demands, so it's totally okay to take time for yourself and get some rest. Number 9, make things visual. I have noticed that if I don't have things visually in front of me, I often forget that they even exist. That's why it's really important for me to have things visible. And you can get super creative with this, actually. For example, you can make a drawing, a chart, or a diagram. And you can also get a whiteboard to jot things down and hang it somewhere you pass by often. Stick notes on doors, the fridge, or the wall with important reminders so you don't forget about them. And you can also use objects as symbols for something else. For example, most of the time I wear a bracelet that reminds me of my trip to Terschelling. It reminds me that I am stronger than I think and that I can handle more than I give myself credit for most of the time. And that often helps me to stay more positive in life. Number 10, practice self-compassion. You know, we're often so incredibly hard on ourselves. Well, I know I definitely am. I can sometimes get really mad at myself when I don't manage to complete a task or I feel disappointed in myself. And when that happens, I try to step back from those thoughts and beliefs and I ask myself, what would I say to a good friend if they didn't manage to finish something? Most of the time, I would be kinder and say something like, you'll do better next time, or look at everything you have managed to do. And by stepping back like that, you can start to see just how hard you're being on yourself and realize it's not really fair. I mean, you're still here and you have come this far. That is something to be really proud of. It's an accomplishment. And some days you will feel it, and some days you won't. And that's okay too. So I really hope that these tips help you tackle executive dysfunction a bit better and step by step. Let me know in the comments what you struggle with the most when it comes to this topic, and let's start a conversation together. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you the next time.